just been laughing, setting up the shot. Look, I see we're both wearing the
We're
same
matching.
things, his and hers. That's a cardi, and this is a shirt. So.
Do you know what? The first video I made, big one, in defence of Wally, I wore this, and I bought it from Marks and Spencer's specially for her, and she commented, it cost about £37, I think. My God, I must have been mad. And she commented under a pseudonym, and I didn't know it was her at the time, and she was the only person it stood out because she said, "I like your cardigan, that's a very fine knit." Anyway, then I never saw it again until 3 days ago. And I found it under a load of your grotty pants at the foot of the bed, and there was an onion and a garlic wrapped up in it,
Nothing
you
to do
monkey.
with me.
So I've had to treat it in the washing
going out
machine.
of it?
It bloody well did. It smelled awful. I wondered where that smell was coming from. Anyway, finally cleaned out the bedroom. I'm going to start renovating that soon.
Very good, very
In
good.
fact, it reminds me, I had a favourite pair of cycling shorts. Not that I cycle. And they went missing for 2 years. And I kept saying to Graham, but they can't have fallen through a hole in the bottom of the boat. And then I discovered he'd been wearing them as pants. And they were stretched beyond all recognition.
They were really good. Anyway,
Okay.
I was going to say, because we're talking about algorithms and YouTube and censorship and clamping down on things that you say and stuff. You had a friend at Sussex University, we won't mention his name, and he was doing something with word recognition.
Do you mean Thomas?
Yeah. Word recognition software. So you've got algorithms, or whatever they're called, bots, police bots on the internet, and they're obviously scanning millions and millions of words. And I think it was to do with telephone calls, because they're monitoring all the telephone calls all the time.
Oh, steady, man, steady. With my face, all right.
Sorry, yes, of course. Do apologise, darling. So, I mean, they couldn't possibly monitor terrorism worldwide, so they have computers listening in to keywords. Beep, beep, beep. So if they have a keyword like bomb, for example, or I don't know, whatever they think keywords are, the computer kicks in and then pays attention to a particular thing. Well, I think YouTube's the same. If you type things in, are you saying things, the bot's scanning all the things, because a bot can scan all the text, a lot faster than a human can. And then any keywords are brought to the attention of. So the way around it, and I'm very proud to say this, is to spell incorrectly. Because a bot will be taught to spell correctly and pick up on the correct spelling.
They're getting wise to that. They're getting wise to it.
Maybe, but I still think that you can spell incorrectly and use the letter D for Delta, I suppose, instead of the. And
this is pathetic that we've got to change our language.
Changing our language. And,
Didn't you get banned from Facebook once for when you were having a conversation about female dogs and you said when a bitch is on heat, and you got banned for a week for using the word bitch?
Yes.
Because the algorithm...
I was talking about dogs, and I was talking about puppies and litters and things, and I just said, well, the bitch is always going to be worth more than the dog, especially if it's a pedigree dog. Pedigree bitch, because you know the bitch can have more puppies, and people are into pedigree dogs and pedigree papers and things. That, you know, the bitch is going to fetch a higher price than the dogs, which is obvious, isn't it? And I got banned. I got put in Facebook jail for a week for using the word bitch, even though I was using it in the correct context as a canine. Anyway.
You sexist pig.
Yes. Yes, so they have word detection software, I'm sure they do, and I feel that the way to...
Well, I tried to do a course on machine learning.
Did you?
A few years ago, yeah. I didn't get very far because I struggle with academia. But if you choose a number from 1 to 1,000 and you say to me, can you guess it in 9 guesses? Yes, I can. And this is how they do it. They can ask 9 questions. They say, is it above or below is it above 500? You know, and then you answer yes or no. Then they know it's the other half. Then they say, is it above or below 250? And in 9 guesses, sometimes quicker, they can get the answer. And that's the basic principle of machine learning. Well, that's the only bit I learned anyway. So I'm too stupid to continue with it. I couldn't understand a bloody word they were saying. I couldn't understand a word of it. And I just thought, I'm going cross-eyed and it's a losing battle. But it's something that's going to become more refined so that the machines can listen to a word and they will give the machines more data that they can understand the context in which... I would imagine it's fairly sophisticated now. It's not the machines that worry me so much these days as what I think are... And I was guilty of it very much myself when I was younger. When you're young, you tend to be quite judgmental, idealistic, and see the world in a much more black and white, cut and dried way, don't you? Well, I did.
Some people do. They see it very black or white, you know, and there's more to it than that, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of colour out there.
It would be nice if people realised, what's always irritated me is people who stereotype, generalise, try and pigeonhole people, put them in boxes, because each and every human being is a multifaceted, highly complex individual.
They are for sure.
And it'd be nice if they...
And I've always said, everybody, no matter who you are, right, everybody is good at something. Even if it's just one thing, they're really good at one thing. That everybody's good at something. And if you can focus on what you're good at, you can build on it, can't you? Anyway, we're diversifying, darling. We're going off on a tangent. We're still talking about YouTube. And YouTube, I remember, we've been on YouTube for years and years and years and lost passwords, forgot the accounts and all kinds of...
I got locked out
I've
of
had
my
several
big one.
accounts over the years, and yes, you got locked out, forgot passwords.
Google bought YouTube, and then it was correct
You
password.
get another,
I couldn't get in.
You get another email address, and then you forget the old email address, then you can't get back into it. Anyway, it's a long story. But we've been on it for years, haven't we? And it used to be really, really good, YouTube. I mean, you could literally... At one time, you could type anything in, and someone will have done a video on it or uploaded it. And then when the copyright police came, it just slaughtered it.
But they did sort that out, because they used to throw people off if you had a TV commercial on in the background.
Oh.
People would get a copyright strike for that. Or if you just wanted to use music, like there's a lot of one-hit wonders from the past.
Yeah.
And I remember being in touch with YouTube lawyers, and I said, why can't you contact the people who own the copyright and offer them I like to think I contributed towards it. Of course I fucking didn't. But they do that now. So you get a kind of a strike, but it's not a strike, and they say the money will go to the copyright owner.
Well, in those days there was no monetisation, there was no advertising, was there? They were just building up. I don't know when that started.
When did they start doing that?
I don't know, but I remember Trevor was saying when he was in the Philippine Islands, everywhere he went there's music playing in the background. And they've only got to pick up on it, even though it's faint and you can't really make out what the music is. Oh, copyright.
Yeah.
Copyright. And it doesn't mean you get a copyright strike. It just means you can't monetize your channel. So if you've got a monetized channel, that video is no good to you because someone's ruined it in the background. But that is real life, isn't it? You record in real life. You're walking around, and if anyone's playing music in the
I don't think
background,
they're that strict now. But I do turn the TV off when I do my videos in the morning. I do turn it. I don't even just turn the sound down. It's got to be off just in case. Yeah. And I also say to you, please don't play anything, because I could get a strike.
Oh God. But it's true though. It used to be loads of fun. It was really good. I mean,
actually, if anybody looks up Brighton Travellers, that was always our big crowning glory. And there's over 1,000 comments on it, which was a lot for those days. And I mean, I was viciously attacked. I was threatened by loads of people. It was basically, if why can't they let people live in a nomadic way, in a peaceful way? And a lot of the commenters came at me and said gypsies are just trouble, and prisons are full of gypsies. And I said, well, prisons are full of people who live in houses. There may be some people who, you can't make sweeping judgments. And I was... Can I swear on your channel? Oh, I was called everything.
Of course not.
I was called every name under the sun. I think probably the harshest one was, I'll cut your throat, you whore. that was, and I thought, wow, that's lovely. And YouTube actually said to me, you should delete that. And I said, no, let it stay. Let it stay for history. Let generations in the future see what the attitude was then. Let the guy be a dickhead in public.
Yeah, and this is another thing about free speech, isn't it? It's like you get National Front and fascists and right-wingers, Nazis, in other words. And if you silence them and just delete all their comments, then people in the future don't really know what nonsense they were pumping at the time. So if you allow them to speak, people can evaluate what they have to say and think, well, no, I don't agree with that. But then they say, oh, no, you're promoting Nazism by not deleting it. And
that's absolutely true, because in the future it's like Holocaust deniers. And yes, it is important that people see how
you can't say the N-word on YouTube, can you? Really get...
Which N-word? Not the
no, Nazi.
Nazi, yeah. I mean, the N-word. My God, even when we were kids,
they must have
was...
the bots listening out for this sort of thing.
But I mean, also, some people may be misidentified as being a Nazi. You know, it's a bit of a common term.
I was on Facebook. One of the reasons I dumped Facebook. I mean, I've still got my Facebook account, and I do check it every now and then just to see if anyone's tried to message me or something. But they suddenly went into one about Nazis and anything to do with Nazis, like. They'd throw you off and put you in Facebook jail for 28 days and things. And I actually had a picture on one of my sites. They closed the site down. It was called Battlefield Archaeology, and it was talking about these people who go digging stuff up on battlefields. And loads of old pictures of crashed planes with swastikas on the tail. Oh, there's a swastika! Oh, bot saw a swastika on your banned for 28 days. I think, oh my God, that was posted 2 years ago. And it's a picture of a crashed plane that had been shot down by a Spitfire. You know, and all this nonsense. Anyway, it came to a head. I had this one picture of an American half-track, right? And a load of GIs all sat round the half-track, all grinning, holding up their souvenirs. They had a big swastika flag laid out on the bonnet, on the hood. Okay, they had a bust of Adolf Hitler. And they were all holding up different bits of shit that they'd picked up after the battle, and they're all there going, hey!
All victorious.
Taking a picture, and I put that on the Battlefield Archaeology website, and that was it. They closed the page, they went into one, because the bot had detected Nazis.
Yeah.
And that was that. So I said, I tell you what, Facebook, you can stick it up your backside, because I don't want to be on it anymore. And I just left. I just didn't really, I used to be on it checking things and looking at things every day, but
we were on it all the time. I dumped it because we had the stalkers. It didn't matter what. I wouldn't post for weeks, and then I'd post something really harmless, like, look, we went to London, and it would just provoke the stalkers. They were awful. And also then I realised people just locally around Gibraltar were saying, oh, did you see what she put on Facebook last night? And I just thought, oh, fuck off, this is total stalker.
Once they realised Facebook wasn't actually her website,
oh, God,
it was something that anyone can go on, was it?
Oh, God.
It's not, because they said they accused her of starting a...
Well, they convinced an elderly lady, a very eminent and legendary character in Gibraltar, who's sadly passed away since.
Yeah.
Katie could be considered a dragon. And she must have been in her 70s or 80s.
She was a judge at one point, wasn't she?
Yeah, and very clever lady. She used to arrest
but
ships.
She knew nothing about the internet. And they all said, that's Fiona.
What they did was they pulled out the most, sexual, that some people put sexual stuff on Facebook. They pulled all these pages out and they said, look what Fiona's got on her webpage, Facebook. And Katie said to me, you've got a website called Facebook. And I did explain it to her, and she was very intelligent. She cottoned on straight away and went, bloody hell, talk about them trying to shit stir. She was legendary.
She was very
lovely.
Yeah. Anyway, we did a video the other day about Jill Dando, the Jill Dando murder. Yeah. And subsequently I did say we're not going to sign up for Netflix to watch the 3-part documentary they've just brought out on the Jill Dando murder, because I said, well, they won't know who's murdered her, will they? They're just going to regurgitate all the stuff they came out with 20 years ago, and
It was
whatever.
very interesting.
But we did watch it.
Somebody sent us a cheeky link.
No names mentioned,
You
of
know
course.
who you are.
Anyway, we got a cheeky link, and we actually sat and watched all 3 episodes one after
Completely
another,
illegally.
drinking gin and tonic and going, get
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Netflix.
It
I'll teach you to give Harry and Meghan loads of money.
It was very interesting.
Yes, it
I
was.
gleaned a lot, from body language of people talking on it. Yeah.
And I gleaned quite a lot as well. There's a very famous picture of Barry George, and if you Google Barry George, the picture will come up. It's on the Daily Mail. It's on all the main, and he's got a gas mask on, but he's got very distinctive eyes and eyebrows, hasn't he? But 100% you can't guarantee it was him. He said it wasn't him, but let's just go with it. Let's just think it was him. And he had a gun in his hand. He's holding this gun up, which was later identified by the police as a Bruni 8mm blank gun. Now, I am familiar with the Bruni 8mm blank gun because I had one years ago. Gave it to my son because I was into guns, air guns. You know I'm into guns. I had a Bruni 8mm, and that's the point. So there he is with his gas mask on, having his picture taken, as young lads would do, you know. But I noticed straight away because I was a member of the gun club and I know about guns.
You actually
I wouldn't say
said-
I was a gun expert, but I definitely got a lot of experience with firearms. Right?
You actually said, before they said it, they showed the picture and you said, that looks like a Bruni 8mm.
Yeah.
And then they said,
yeah.
this was a Bruni 8mm. And you were like,
So what the police were alleging all along, I mean, he held this gun up, right? Now, I know the Americans do it differently, but I was always taught when you're holding a gun, right, so you keep your finger away from the trigger and your other hand's on the bottom of the magazine, right? And when you're ready to fire, your finger goes in, right? You can cock. I used to cock it, and I used to shoot it like this. And same when I'm shooting left-handed, exactly the same thing repeated. A lot of people, especially Americans, they'll hold the gun at the side. There's different techniques, but anyone who holds a gun like this or like this doesn't know what they're doing. They've never been trained. And so there's Barry George with his fingers like this. That's the first thing that I saw. That guy doesn't know how to handle a firearm, not properly. Or if he does, he's not doing it in the photograph, which he would do. You would hold it differently. Anyway, that's one of the first things that I picked up on. And assuming that was Barry George in the photo with the gas mask, it was revealed that the police experts believe it to be a Bruni 8mm. And that's very... Because an 8mm bullet, well, a blank. Let's not forget blank, because you can. I've looked it up on the internet. Bruni 8mm blank gun, and they still sell them. They're about £120. You can buy them anywhere in England. Anyone can buy one. Right? You put blanks
well, I'm
in
not
it.
sure you should say that.
You put blanks. Yeah, you put blanks in it. It's
You
totally
might put
legal.
ideas in
Nothing illegal. You can put it in, and then you can go out and go bang, 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 and you get covered in GSR. That's what happens. But you cannot put a 9mm bullet into an 8mm gun. It's like putting a triangular peg in a square hole. It's not going to fit. Okay, you would have to have mechanical knowledge. So the way the police came across, they said, you had a Bruni 9mm, and he went, no, I didn't. He denied everything, of course. But they said he'd modified his Bruni 8mm. I keep saying 9mm, 8mm. Modified it to fire this 9mm bullet.
Yeah, it sounds
that had come from. I mean, if you had the engineering technology,
you have to have a lathe and things like that.
You'd have to be an engineer. You'd have to have a lathe and a milling machine. Know what you're doing.
Oh my goodness!
And if you had that knowledge, you could just build yourself a gun to start off with. You wouldn't need to try and modify a blank gun, which is made of aluminium or some sort of horrible alloy that won't. I mean, the blank gun will stand up to the. And the other thing is with Britain, okay, when you buy a 9 or an 8mm blank gun in the UK, it cannot discharge down the barrel. It's blocked. It's got a big block in there at an angle.
Yeah.
Right, so that when the blank goes off, it goes forward about a few millimetres hits this obstruction, and then there's a hole, there's a port in the top. It goes. So all your GSR and your flames come out the top of the gun. There's absolutely nothing comes out the front of the gun, which is different to the European models, because you can buy forward firing blank guns, but they have obstructions in the barrel as well. You can't put a bullet in there. You can't drill it out. It's impossible. You just can't do it. These things are like super strong, high tensile steel pegs and blocks and things that are obstructing the way through. So someone like Barry George, who doesn't even know how to hold a gun to start off with, right? I don't believe for 1 minute that he could have had the technology and the way with it all to I mean, I don't even think you could modify a Bruni 8mm to fire a 9mm short, which was a .380 ACP. I mean, that would be a homemade gun, wouldn't it? And I said to you all along, they showed loads of pictures of the empty cartridge case, but they never ever once did they show, and I've never seen it, if they have, the bullet, the actual bullet. Where is the bullet? Does it have rifle marks on it? Because it's probably more likely got rifle marks on it. So if it's got rifle marks on it, it's not a homemade gun, it's a proper gun. It's come from somewhere, because they're compact guns. They're compact, concealable, like a PPK. You've heard of the PPK, Walther PPK?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're normally 9mm or 7.65, something like some weird. But they also
Wow,
did them.
you really are a gun
They also
boffin,
did them
aren't
in
you?
no. They also did them in .380 ACP, and the Czechs had a CZ83, which was a copy of the PPK. It wasn't quite the same, but it was pretty much the same. If you look at it, you think, well, and there was loads of them on the black market flying around. They're all over, because when the Russian mafia came along, they're flogging them everywhere. So unless we see the actual bullet that was dug out of the crime scene, right, we won't know if it was a smoothbore homemade gun or whether it was a rifle barrel from a proper gun. So that is a very, very important bit, because if it is a rifle barrel, which I do suspect it is, then it's definitely a hitman, and it's definitely probably someone from the Eastern Bloc who's brought in a CZ or something similar, small, compact. That's just my take on it. What was your take on the...
Well, I think you're missing the point a lot by going on about the gun.
Well, I think it's a very important piece of evidence. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't think it is that important. I watched the show and I felt the police were doing their job really well, up to a point, and they just strayed off the path. I've never known coppers, and I've known a lot of coppers. I've never known any copper stray off the traditional tried and tested method like this. Is he called Hamish or something?
Hamish, yeah.
I mean, they started off, she wasn't living in the house. Very few people would have known she was going to go there that day. Mansfield, the barrister, said, well, Barry George, being the type of character he was, whoever it was, they were laying in wait for her. They knew she was going to be there, and that's very few people. And Hamish, this copper, said, that's what we thought, that's where we started, and there were very few people. And so he said they questioned all of the people who knew, and they gave alibis, and that was it. They ruled them out. Now, if I was a copper, and all the coppers I ever knew back in the day, and I think Hamish strayed off the mark because of the pressure from the media.
Yeah, it was a long time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but it was a long time, and the press were on, and well, come on, who did it? Haven't you caught someone yet?
It wasn't a long time, the press were on them after days, after weeks, after a couple of months.
That's what the press do, that's their job.
But that's not how policing works. Now, with me, and any copper I knew back in the day, what they would have done was look at each individual person. They'd have thought, this is a hit, so I don't care if you've got an alibi. They'd have been all over every single one of those people like a rash. And not only those people, who did those people tell? Now, I'm telling you, of course it was a hit. but whoever paid the hit was very close to Jill. And I'll tell you something else about that Netflix show. They're not doing that to get help from the public about rifling on a bullet. To find an obscure hitman. They're not looking for the hitman. They're looking for the person who paid the hitman. Now, the idea it was the Serbs is absolutely fucking ludicrous. And to me, it is obvious that the anonymous person that made the phone call to the BBC, making the very suggestion it was the Serbs, was the murderer themselves. Not the hitman, the person who paid the hitman.
Could well have been. Yeah.
Now, I'll go further than that. When I was on the run and we were in Holland, there was an article that came out that said, we know exactly where Fiona Mont is. The police are going to kick her door in this Friday. And you panicked a little at first, and I said, bollocks. They haven't got a clue where I am. The police would never tell the press, and they would certainly not allow the press to print some shit like that. And sure enough, they never turned up. Fast forward about a year, 18 months, I can't remember, and one of the newspapers said, police haven't got a clue where Fiona is. And that's when I said to you, they know exactly where I am, and they're coming. And you said, what do you want to do? Do you want to run? And I said, nope, let's sit it out. Let's stick it out. Now, the Netflix show, I believe that when the police are saying, we haven't got a clue, it's an old cold case, I believe they know exactly.
I see where you're coming from.
They know exactly who paid the hitman and who was responsible for Jill Dando's death. And the reason for the participation and the cooperation with Netflix is to trigger that individual, similar to the lines of Ian Huntley when the police said to the person, you just need to turn the mobile phone on, you just need to turn it on. Huntley turned it on, they triangulated and they got him. I probably shouldn't be saying this all over YouTube because I could be tipping off the person. And I'll go further than that. I think I know which of the people it was that paid the hitman, having watched Netflix. And I've actually changed my mind from the person before, because the Netflix show actually gave a lot of information.
You think it was one of the people they interviewed in the show?
Yes, it was someone that was in the show, was the killer. Yes. And the police know that. Yes, 100%. So watch the Netflix show and see who you think it was.
We're not promoting Netflix, are we?
Well, no, watch a cheeky link.
Cheekylink.com.
But yes, I believe Jill's murderer was in that show, and I believe I know which one, having watched the body language, having listened to a lot of it. There's no way back in the day any of the coppers that I knew would have let any one of those people off the hook with, oh, I was busy having dinner 100 miles away. Bullshit. Bullshit. That's just my instinct from back in the day.
Do you think the Range Rover played a part in
No.
it?
Bollocks. There never was a blue Range Rover. That's just a witness. Witnesses say all kinds of stupid things. I'm not admitting to anything, but I had a friend. Okay? Just asking for a friend. I knew a girl once. She was awfully naughty, and you weren't allowed to drive up North Street in Brighton. They were stopping it, buses only. Anyway, this silly cow, let's call her Sally, shall we? She had a black Rover, and she thought, fuck it, it's quicker to go up North Street. And a traffic warden stepped out in front of Sally's car and went, stop in the name of the law. And she sort of kind of forced him out of the way with the car, and as he went past the open window, he went, oh, stop in the name of the law. And she went, oh, fuck off. Anyway, she got to Western Road, and a WPC went, stop! Did you just try and run over a traffic warden? And my friend Sally said, no. And I heard on the radio, and the traffic warden said it was a navy blue Sierra. And the WPC went, oh, it's a black Rover. You're free to go. So Sally...
That was lucky for her, wasn't it?
It was lucky for Sally, that, wasn't it? Anyway, I mean, she told me he was right obnoxious, sort of Jeremy Vine type character.
I've met a few obnoxious traffic wardens in my time.
Witnesses can be very accurate. Like, for example, all the witnesses who saw the Titanic break in half. They were right.
They said it broke in half before it sank. And they went, no, couldn't possibly have done. But all the witnesses said that.
There were lots of witnesses who said that. But
They were there.
when you have an individual or just a few witnesses and something very, very shocking has just happened, you'd be amazed how they get the details wrong. And there may well have been a blue Range Rover. But again, I believe the murderer was there in the mix and could have been drip feeding red herrings and a load of crap.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you were a murderer and you'd be wanting to watch the news, I suppose, all the time, wouldn't you? You'd be wanting to lead them away down false alleys.
Yes.
And what do they call them? Fake
And it was a very clever
red
idea.
herrings and false trails.
It was a
and
very,
things.
very clever idea of the murderer to throw
Send
the
letters
Serbian
to the
thing
BBC.
in. No, they'd sent a letter to the agent about it that was a bit threatening. I think they showed clips on the Netflix of the actual Serbians going, "This is bullshit. Why would we want to kill someone?" It was very clever the way that the murderer did it. But my advice with the police would be to look very closely at the close circle. And I'm certain they are, and I'm certain they're monitoring things, and they will be playing on paranoia and fear a lot.
Oh, just one more thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Before I go.
Yeah. And I mean, what was the other theory? That it was gangsters, East End gang, and they had an East End gangster on this programme. And all right, fair enough. He's just trying to make himself look big and hard. Bollocks. I don't believe that one either. I don't believe that one.
Gun crime. I mean, gangsters in the UK, they do have guns. There are incidents, but they're not like that. That was different. No. I mean, you've seen the gun crime in Liverpool. People spraying a machine gun at an entrance of a pub and killing people, and they've only had 11 rounds in the gun, and then they've gone ooh, and run off because it's empty. Unlike John Wayne films where the clip lasts the whole film. Doesn't work like that in real life, and a lot of these gangsters they're not that good with firearms. I mean, they've got some experience with firearms, of course they have.
You've got to put yourself in the shoes of the witnesses. They heard a bit of a scream. They went out. They were probably thinking, as somebody slipped and twisted their ankle.
But there was all privets, because we've been on Google Earth, haven't we? And you said there was all privets at the time, and the privets have all gone now.
By the time Mansfield went down to look, the privets had gone.
Have they?
But, right, the witnesses said they were in a house, they heard a scream, so they were probably assuming someone had twisted their ankle and they needed help. I need to go and help somebody. And what they described when they saw Jill's head was at an extraordinary angle, and it was obvious to them she was dead. That's a very shocking thing.
Yeah, but...
And people get sensory overload.
One thing I noticed about the Netflix video was the crime scene. She was allegedly by the door. The body was by the door, but there was blood all the way down. Blood drops all the way down to the gate. Mm. How did that happen?
Well, she was bleeding out.
The whoever did it must have been covered in blood. Not
necessarily.
Well, there must have been some blood on them.
Well, if it's very quick, bang, and they're off because they're planned. They know what they're doing. They would be away. They would be away because she was on the ground and bleeding out. Lot of blood.
There was blood all the way down to the gate on that Netflix.
There's a lot of blood in a human head, and the heart would. It would depend how long. Yeah, it's quite revolting actually, and awful and tragic. But I think they will catch the person, and I think the world will be shocked. And I know that Jill would have been horrified to see somebody like Barry George, who was vulnerable, being blamed and serving 8 years in prison for something he didn't do. And I believe that people who have died, that they can watch us and they can see us and they can send messages. And I can feel Jill's frustration. It's an injustice to Jill and it's an injustice to Barry. And there was a very interesting remark that her agent made at the end.
Was there?
Yeah, he said something like...
Remind me.
He said, of course that Barry George never did it. He said the real killer, he is still having fun having his dinner, over dinner, like implying it's someone who goes to restaurants, has dinner parties. I found that very telling. his body language, and God knows what all of those participants said off camera, but I'm certain the police will be privy to anything that went on the cutting floor of that programme. In fact, I think the purpose of the programme was to smoke out the murderer, the real murderer. And then when they find the real murderer, then they will know who the hitman was, who's probably long gone and or could even be dead. I mean,
back to Serbia or whatever.
Yeah.
Russia.
I mean, that's my theory. Those are just my thoughts and opinions.
Well, we've been on quite a long time, 35 minutes. That's a bit of an epic.
It is epic.
It was,
It's like alive, isn't it?
I can't believe they picked Barry George up, though. They just found some loon, some dropout who had a blank gun at one time. And had
I can sort of see where Hamish was going.
He'll do.
No. I think that's a bit unfair to Hamish. You won't hear me sticking up for coppers very often, and I don't like the fact Barry did 8 years. But Hamish was actually quite honest, taking the criticism. And yes, I think he was under tremendous pressure, and he was just having so many theories thrown at him. And he had a team of something like 16 officers, which is hugely undermanned. I mean, that's not a justice to Jill when she was on Crime Watch. So I do sympathise with Hamish.
Well, it's a cold case, and the police, what that means is the case is still open. The police will still investigate it if anything new comes to light.
I think it's going to warm up quite soon.
Good night, and may your God go with you.